My Sunday school channel. My name is Miss Angie, and today we're going to continue on with the lesson. Last week I posted the lesson 61. Sorry that I did not put it there, but today we're going to be talking about lesson 62. God judges the rebellion. One thing that you're going to notice about my lessons, I always have the Bible book and my slideshow, as well as the chapter and the verses. In the event that I might have skipped something or did not address something, you can always reference it. And this is my Bible. I have it right here for reference, just in case. I cannot count on my own wisdom. Well, let's continue on with today's lesson. The memory verse for today is Deuteronomy 7:9. Know therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him and keep his commandment to 1,000 generations. Today, we're going to talk about the history and story and the entire chapter of 16. If the chapter changes, I will let you know. And this is just a narration that I will be sharing with you. Okay, here in verses 1 and 3 from chapter 16, we're going to be talking about Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Korah is from the tribe of Levi, and as well as Dathan and Abiram, they are from the tribe of Reuben. These three got together and were stirring up trouble. Korah, Dathan, and Abiram came to Moses and Aaron and brought with them 250 chiefs. These chiefs were well known and also respected. The men were accusing Moses and Aaron of exalting themselves above the assembly of God. Moses and Aaron did not make themselves leader. God himself put them in charge. One thing that we need to remember on the history in the book of Exodus. Remember. God called Moses at the burning bush and chose him to lead his people, the Israelites. At first, he did not want to, but he did obey God. Also, Aaron was also one of the tribe of Levi, chosen by God and his sons to serve as priests. This made some men jealous. Now, the Levites were in charge and had a very special job chosen by God to care for the tabernacle. Those of you that do not know what a tabernacle is, it was like a tent, an assembly movable tent to worship God and to worship in general. Korah already had a special job from God. Considering that he was from the tribe of Levi, he helped care for the tabernacle. Korah wanted to be a leader and a priest, and Moses didn't know this. Moses and Aaron knew that the people were not really speaking against them, but against God. Moses immediately fell on his face because he recognized the great sin the men committed. He interceded. Interceded is something that another person does on behalf of another person. Like a lawyer, you have a lawyer, the lawyer will represent you and intercede for you. That's more or less what he was doing. Now, he told the 250 men to come back the next day with censers to offer like priests did. God will show who he wanted as priest. Now in verses 12 and 14, accusers Dathan and Abiram were sent to meet with Moses, but they refused. They accused Moses of three things: taking them out of the land that flows milk and honey, Egypt, which according to the book of Exodus, that's not true. Moses was chosen by God to take his people, to set his people free, take them out of slavery and bondage. Number two, that Moses brought them to the wilderness to kill them so they will die. And also that Moses was making himself a prince over the people. All accusations against Moses, of course, were false. Moses truly, really wanted to lead the Israelites into the promised land that floweth milk and honey, but they were not willing. On the previous lesson 61, we talked about this. Now on verses 19 and 35 from chapter 16, we're still there, God's judgment. The next day, the three rebels causing the trouble and division, Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, assembled against Moses and Aaron along with 250 sheep. This was an incredible event that took place in history in the Old Testament. First, we see the glory of the Lord appeared. Okay, and the Lord told Moses to separate themselves from the congregation. Now, the congregation is a multitude of people, great people. Now, why will they separate themselves from the congregation? Because God, the Lord, was going to consume them. Once again, Moses interceded for the people. He asked God to spare the congregation from the punishment the rebels deserved, which was Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. After Moses prayed to the Lord told him to warn the congregation to step away from the three rebels and their dwellings. The dwellings, it is a like a housing place, a residence that they live. So immediately Moses set up a test to show whether God was for his leadership or Korah's leadership. If God was for them, Korah, they will die a natural death, a natural cause. If God was for Moses, okay, the sign will be that the three rebels plus their dwellings and their families will be swallowed up by the ground. What happens next? The earth opened up her mouth and swallowed the three rebels whole completely with everything they own, including their families. God's judgment was not over yet. Fire came from the Lord and consumed the 250 chief leaders. You may be asking why this 250 men deserve such a serious punishment compared to the rebels. Here it is. They were challenging God's authority when they complained against Moses and Aaron. After this was over and done, the very next day, can you guess what happened? You're probably guessing correct. You're right. The people once again grumbling, blaming Moses and Aaron for killing the rebels and the leaders, which according to this that we have here, this King James Version Bible, under no circumstances Moses and Aaron did kill the rebels and the leaders. They did not have the power or authority to do that. That was God's doing. Um, um, Opening the ground, consuming, swallowing up the three rebels, and in an instant consuming with his fire from heaven the 250 men. There was no way. God knew that there were people were grumbling against him, and that made him very angry. You would think that the Israelites would learn a lesson from the day before of all that took place. No, but they continue. God brought judgment upon them by sending a plague, and the people started to die. Moses and Aaron intercedes once again. Moses told Aaron quickly, take your censer and put fire from the altar. And censer is something that they put incense in and they carry it. Immediately, Aaron carried his censer quickly toward the people to make an atonement for them because the wrath of God was upon them. So it was a very great loss that day. It was an incredible great loss in history. And Aaron stood between the dead and the living with his censer. Finally, the plague did stop, but not until 14,700 Israelites died. Moses and Aaron prayed to God over again to spare the people. After all the negative bad things done to Moses and Aaron, they were very forgiving. Quick question for you. Have any of you experienced a consequence or punishment when you or someone you knew disobeyed the authority? Of course. Authority is when your parents tell you to do your chores, clean your room, do your homework, and you don't do it. There's consequences when you don't. You either get a spanking or a timeout or take privileges removed from you. I'm pretty sure that you have seen on the news people getting arrested or people speeding, being pulled over on the highway. That is just to mention a few. After the rebellion, all the chiefs of the 12 tribes brought a staff to the tabernacle. At the beginning, the Lord proved that he wanted Moses to continue to be the leader, and here affirms that the Lord wanted Aaron to be the high priest and his sons to be the carriers of the censers and do the prayer in the tabernacle. But as you see here, after the rebellion of the chiefs of the 12 tribes brought a staff to the tabernacle, the three asterisks, let's go down and read. God showed his right to choose by causing Aaron's rod staff to butt while the others did not. This, God affirms that no stranger should come near to offer incense before the Lord unless it's by Aaron's son. So God was very affirmed and very detailed as to who he chose and who he wanted to carry on. Now we're going to go all the way now to Numbers chapter 21, verses 5 to 9, the fiery serpents. The Israelites continued their travels and reached a place where there was no water. The people were so desperate that they started once again to grumble, to complain, to murmur. And there was no water and there was no food, which this is not true. The Lord is the beginning of Exodus that they got out of the land of Egypt. The Lord gave them manna every morning. This was like a type of bread, like a wafer bread. And then in the evening, the Lord did provide for them quail for meat every evening. God did this for 40 years. And also the Lord did provide them water. Just the thought that they said this, it was so wrong, and I can see why God was so upset. They even wished that they have died like Korah did. The nerve. Yep, can you guess what happened next? Next judgment. The Lord sent fiery serpents among the people and bit them, and they started to die. Immediately, the people recognized their sin and came to Moses. Now, this is incredible because usually Moses is the one that sees their sin and detects it and immediately falls to his face and makes prayer intercession for them. But this time, they really went to Moses. And once again, Moses interceded for the people. And the Lord told Moses to take a pole and make a brass snake around it. Here we see a demonstration of what it might have been like when Moses finally put the pole and the brass snake around it. You see the people here fainted and the snakes on the ground, and they are looking at the brass snake because if they look at it and they got bitten, so they will not die. This is a perfect example how sin is punished without discrimination of gender or age. Application. Who are the people in your life the Lord has put authority? Think about this for a moment. For beginners, your parents. I'm pretty sure when your parents are not around, your grandparents. And when your grandparents might not be around, your uncle and or your aunts. What about police officer, authorities? Next question, just to mention a few. Have you ever committed a wrongdoing and received punishment for it? We all have. Miss Angie, for example, when I was young and had a sports car, I liked speeding. I got caught speeding twice. I paid a high rate insurance for 2 tickets, which it took me many, many years to recover from. And now I have learned my lesson and I do not pay that high insurance like I used to. God is immutable. He does not change. He is the same God of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He is always forgiving, always showing love and his mercy, and at the same time punishing sin. Once again, thank you for watching. Till next time, lesson 63, God prepares the way. Have a blessed day.